Welcome. Today, we are looking at production. This is a key topic in your commerce exams for SS1. Pay close attention. Let us begin. First, let me explain the meaning of production. Production is the process of creating goods and services to satisfy human wants. It is the transformation of raw materials into finished products. Production is not only about making physical goods. It also includes providing services. A farmer growing crops is engaged in production. A teacher providing education is also engaged in production. A doctor treating patients is engaged in production. A transporter moving goods is engaged in production. Any activity that creates utility is production. Utility is the satisfaction that a consumer gets from a product. Production creates form, place, time, and possession utility. Production is important because it provides the goods and services that people need and want. Without production, there would be no food, no clothing, no shelter, no transportation, and no entertainment. Production is the first step in the economic process. After goods are produced, they must be distributed through commerce. Then they are consumed. The cycle of production, distribution, and consumption is continuous. Production creates employment. It generates income. It leads to economic growth. Countries that produce more goods and services are wealthier than those that produce less. Now, let me explain the types of production. Production is divided into three main types: primary production, secondary production, and tertiary production. These are also called the three sectors of the economy. Primary production is the extraction of raw materials from nature. It is also called extractive production. Examples of primary production include farming, fishing, mining, logging, and quarrying. A farmer who grows yams is engaged in primary production. A fisherman who catches fish is engaged in primary production. A miner who digs gold from the ground is engaged in primary production. Primary production provides the raw materials that other industries need. Without primary production, there would be no raw materials for factories to process. Secondary production is the processing of raw materials into finished goods. It is also called manufacturing or construction. Secondary production takes the output of primary production and transforms it into more useful forms. Examples of secondary production include processing cassava into gari, refining crude oil into petrol, building houses, and assembling cars. A factory that turns cotton into cloth is engaged in secondary production. A bakery that turns flour into bread is engaged in secondary production. A construction company that builds a bridge is engaged in secondary production. Secondary production adds value to raw materials. It creates form utility. The raw material is changed into something more useful and more valuable. Tertiary production is the provision of services. It is also called the service sector. Tertiary production does not produce physical goods. It provides services that help people and businesses. Examples of tertiary production include banking, insurance, transportation, advertising, education, healthcare, and entertainment. A bank that provides loans is engaged in tertiary production. A bus driver who transports passengers is engaged in tertiary production. A teacher who teaches students is engaged in tertiary production. A doctor who treats patients is engaged in tertiary production. Tertiary production creates place, time, and possession utility. It helps to distribute goods and make them available to consumers. Now, let me explain the relationship between the three types of production. They are interdependent. Primary production provides raw materials to secondary production. Secondary production processes those raw materials into finished goods. Tertiary production helps to distribute those goods to consumers. For example, a farmer grows cotton. That is primary production. A factory turns the cotton into cloth. That is secondary production. A tailor turns the cloth into shirts. That is also secondary production. A transporter moves the shirts to the market. That is tertiary production. A retailer sells the shirts to customers. That is tertiary production. A banker provides a loan to the farmer and the factory. That is tertiary production. So all three types work together. Some economists add a fourth type of production called quaternary production. Quaternary production is the production of information and knowledge. It includes research and development, information technology, consulting, and education at the university level. This sector is growing in importance in developed countries. But for your exams, you need to focus on the three main types. Now let me explain the factors of production. Factors of production are the resources used to produce goods and services. There are four main factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Land includes all natural resources. It includes the land itself, but also water, minerals, oil, gas, forests, and animals. Land is a gift of nature. It is not created by humans. The reward for land is rent. When you pay rent for an apartment, you are paying for the use of land. The characteristics of land are that it is fixed in supply, it is immobile, and it varies in quality. Some land is fertile. Some land is poor. Some land is flat. Some land is hilly. Labor includes all human effort used in production. This includes physical work and mental work. It includes the work of farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers, and business owners. The reward for labor is wages or salaries. When you get paid for your job, that is wages. The characteristics of labor are that it is perishable, it is mobile, and it can be improved through education and training. If a worker does not work today, that labor is lost forever. It cannot be stored. Workers can move from one place to another. They can also be trained to become more productive. Capital includes all man-made goods used to produce other goods. This includes machines, tools, buildings, roads, computers, and factories. Capital is different from land because capital is made by humans. The reward for capital is interest. When you earn interest on savings, that is the reward for capital. The characteristics of capital are that it is man-made, it is mobile, and it depreciates over time. Machines wear out. Buildings get old. They need to be replaced. Capital is also productive. It helps workers to produce more than they could with their hands alone. Entrepreneurship is the factor that organizes the other three. The entrepreneur takes risks. He or she combines land, labor, and capital to produce goods and services. The entrepreneur decides what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. The reward for entrepreneurship is profit. Profit is what is left after paying rent, wages, and interest. The characteristics of entrepreneurship are that it involves risk-taking, decision-making, and innovation. The entrepreneur is the driving force of the economy. Without entrepreneurs, the other factors would not be organized into productive activity. Now, let me explain the concept of division of labor. Division of labor means breaking down a production process into small, separate tasks. Each worker specializes in one task. For example, in a shoe factory, one worker cuts the leather, another stitches the upper, another attaches the sole, and another polishes the finished shoe. Division of labor increases efficiency. Workers become skilled at their specific tasks. They do not waste time moving from one task to another. They can produce more in less time. Division of labor is also called specialization. It is used in almost every industry today. Assembly lines are a common example of division of labor. What are the advantages of division of labor? First, it increases productivity. Workers produce more output in the same amount of time. Second, it improves quality. Workers become experts in their tasks. They make fewer mistakes. Third, it saves time. Workers do not have to change tools or move to different workstations. Fourth, it allows for the use of machinery. Machines can be designed for specific tasks. Fifth, it reduces training time. Workers only need to learn one task, not the whole production process. Sixth, it leads to innovation. Workers who do the same task repeatedly often find better ways to do it. What are the disadvantages of division of labor? First, it can lead to boredom and monotony. Doing the same task over and over again is tedious. Workers may become dissatisfied. Second, it can lead to unemployment. If a worker is only skilled in one task, they may not find another job if that task is automated. Third, it can lead to interdependence. If one worker is absent, the whole production line may stop. Fourth, it can lead to increased stress. Workers may feel pressure to keep up with the pace of the production line. Fifth, it can lead to dehumanization. Workers may feel like they are just cogs in a machine. Now let me explain the concept of specialization. Specialization is similar to division of labor. Specialization means focusing on producing the goods or services that you are best at producing. Specialization can be at the individual level, the firm level, or the national level. At the individual level, a doctor specializes in heart surgery. A lawyer specializes in criminal law. At the firm level, a company specializes in making cars. Another company specializes in making tires. At the national level, Nigeria specializes in producing oil. Ghana specializes in producing cocoa. Specialization leads to increased output and trade. Countries trade with each other to get the goods they do not produce. Specialization has advantages. It increases efficiency. It allows for the use of advanced technology. It leads to lower costs and lower prices. It also has disadvantages. It can lead to overdependence. If a country specializes in one product and the price of that product falls, the country's economy will suffer. It can also lead to a lack of self-sufficiency. A country that specializes may not be able to produce essential goods like food. Now, let me explain the concept of scale of production. Scale of production refers to the size of a production operation. There are 3 scales of production. Small-scale production uses few workers and little capital. Examples include a family farm, a small bakery, or a tailor shop. Medium-scale production uses more workers and more capital. Examples include a medium-sized factory or a regional supermarket chain. Large-scale production uses many workers and large amounts of capital. Examples include a car manufacturing plant, an oil refinery, or a multinational corporation. Large-scale production enjoys economies of scale. Economies of scale are cost advantages that come from producing in large quantities. As output increases, the average cost per unit decreases. What are the economies of scale? There are several types. Technical economies come from using larger and more efficient machines. Managerial economies come from employing specialist managers. Financial economies come from borrowing money at lower interest rates. Marketing economies come from advertising and distributing in bulk. Risk-bearing economies come from spreading risk across a wider range of products. All of these reduce the average cost of production. What are the diseconomies of scale? These are disadvantages that come from producing in very large quantities. As a firm becomes very large, it may become difficult to manage. Communication may break down. Workers may feel alienated. Costs may begin to rise again. The average cost per unit may increase. This is why there is a limit to how large a firm can grow. A common exam question asks you to define production and list the types of production. Here is a sample answer. Production is the process of creating goods and services to satisfy human wants. The 3 types of production are primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary production extracts raw materials from nature. Examples include farming and mining. Secondary production processes raw materials into finished goods. Examples include manufacturing and construction. Tertiary production provides services. Examples include banking, transportation, and education. Another exam question asks you to explain the factors of production. Here is your answer. The 4 factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Land includes all natural resources. Its reward is rent. Labor includes all human effort. Its reward is wages. Capital includes all man-made goods used in production. Its reward is interest. Entrepreneurship is the factor that organizes the other 3. Its reward is profit. All 4 factors are necessary for production to take place. Another exam question asks you to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of division of labor. Here is your answer. The advantages of division of labor include increased productivity, improved quality, time savings, use of machinery, reduced training time, and innovation. The disadvantages include boredom and monotony, unemployment, interdependence, increased stress, and dehumanization. Division of labor is widely used in modern industry, but it must be managed carefully to avoid its negative effects. Let me give you a quick summary. Production is the creation of goods and services. The three types are primary, secondary, and tertiary. The factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Keep reviewing, keep practicing. See you in the next topic.